today in this gospel passage, we see a side of Jesus that might make us just a little uncomfortable. We're used to a Jesus that is usually warm and fuzzy, a Jesus that is someone who invites us in and usually wants to embrace us with this tender look of love, a tenderness that we desire so much. We talk about a Jesus who is always willing to forgive, a Jesus whose tender touch we look forward to so much, a Jesus not like today's gospel, an angry Jesus who turns over tables and has a whip in his hand. We often want to avoid a judgmental Jesus, an angry Jesus, a Jesus who seems to be rather passionate, a Jesus who, well, is not a comfortable sort of Jesus. And maybe that's because we're not really understanding what's going on here. And perhaps also we do need to see a side of Jesus that we don't often want to see. Because if we truly believe that Jesus, as the Son of God, is truly God and truly human, then Jesus needs to experience everything about human nature. And this part of Jesus is part of human nature. We all experience it. We've all gotten angry. We've all gotten deeply passionate about something. And maybe that's the part that we need to explore just a little bit. About the capacity to get passionate about something. Because if we don't have the capacity to be passionate, to feel deeply about something, we may be missing one of the most important parts of our human experience. I'm hoping that we have the capacity to feel that deeply about something. On the positive side of the spectrum, that we can feel positively, passionately, deeply in love. But if we can feel that on the positive side of the spectrum, then we have the capacity to feel that deeply on the other side as well. And I'm hoping that we can. That we can get really upset about something. Perhaps how along the way we've felt that way. We've got about something. Like right now, I think something is happening. Checking my battery levels. That, maybe I'm just talking too loud. I don't know. There it is. No. That we can feel deeply. Maybe that's what's making us uncomfortable about Jesus. That Jesus can feel so deeply about something. Well, we also need to look at some of the details of the story to deeply understand what's going on. You see, because Jesus, with the temple, the way the temple is organized, Jesus isn't in the worship part of the temple. That's something we can kind of get mixed up a little bit. Jesus is in that portion of the temple in Palestine back in the day that's called the court of the Gentiles. This is a part of the temple complex that if we would make an analogy to our arrangement here at St. Luke's, you'd be over in the fellowship hall or in the auditorium. You wouldn't be here in the worship space. So it's a relief to those who worry about selling soup and chocolate Easter eggs and that sort of thing. I'm going to go up there because this keeps going in and out here. Hold on. There. Okay, better. That you would be over in the other part of the church's precincts. That would be sort of the court of the Gentiles, as it were. It'd be where we do our business. So the money changers and the commerce people would be over there. So Jesus isn't worried about the purity of worship that's going on. That's not what's going on here. And so we need to put that in our heads a little bit here. So Jesus isn't criticizing someone for doing business in worship space. Let's get that out of our heads. That's not what's going on here. But he's also doing something which is a little odd if we think about it, because the people that he's criticizing, the people that he's being kind of mean to in this story, are people that actually need to be there. Because the law of Moses, as it is written, requires that this stuff happen in the temple. You may recall the story even in Jesus' own life. We have a memorialization of that here in the window, here in the Lady Chapel. On the far end is the story of the presentation of Jesus in the temple. You recall the story of Mary and Joseph bringing the baby Jesus to the temple and presenting him to Simeon. That was an event in Jesus' life that was fairly common because it was required in the law of Moses that you redeem your firstborn son. The law of Moses required that you give over your firstborn son, consecrate your firstborn son to the service of the temple. In other words, you had to give them up to the priests of the temple. But also the law of Moses recognized that that was not necessarily a great thing for families, and so you could redeem your firstborn son by offering a sacrifice of redemption. And for poor families, that sacrifice was a minimal kind of thing. It was a very low bar. You could offer, wait for it, 2 turtle doves. 2 turtle doves. And in the story we get of the presentation, that's exactly what the exchange was. Mary and Joseph came to offer 2 turtle doves in exchange for the life of their firstborn son. They could then take, once they did this, they could take him back and take him home. This was the normal religious practice of the day. And so it's no wonder that there are what in the story? Doves. There were other animals there offered for sacrifice as well, depending on whatever sacrifice was required in the law. So this was normal. But there was something else that was required as well. You could not purchase this sacrifice if you couldn't bring it from home. I mean, who has turtle doves laying around at home? You basically couldn't bring them from home, so you journeyed from wherever you were in Palestine down to the temple, and you purchased that there. But you couldn't purchase it with Gentile money. And you were living in a Roman-occupied state. So the money, the coin of the realm, was Roman money or Greek money. Recall in the gospel stories how when Jesus is using various ideas of money, he's using terms like a denarius or a drachma. These are Greek forms of money or Roman forms of money. You can't use those in the temple. So what do you need? You need money changers. It would be as if we didn't allow you to use dollar bills, U.S. currency, to make your offering here at St. Luke's, that you had to use St. Luke's bucks. And so there would be money changers over in the auditorium, and you would go over there and you would have your U.S. currency exchanged to Episcopal dollars or something, and then you came and offered your Episcopal dollars in the offering plate. It would be that kind of system. So these things were necessary in the temple. So why is Jesus criticizing them first and foremost? This was the normal religious practice of the day and a necessary practice. And they weren't harming anything in the religious worship space. They were off in the commerce area of the temple that had been there for a long, long time. This was the normal practice, all of that. But there they were. And Jesus comes along and he takes a whip. And he says, "Stop making my Father's house into a marketplace," etc., etc. So what's the point? Here's the point. Remember, folks, the Gospels were all written after Jesus had lived and died on the cross and had risen from the dead. So the stories we are hearing are reflections on the mystery of Jesus' life. And the events in Jesus' life, as they are related to us, are trying to teach us something about the mission and the ministry of Jesus. So what is Jesus saying to us here? He is telling us, you have no need of all of this anymore. You have no need of temple sacrifices. You have no need of the law of Moses. You have no need of all of this ritual religious practice anymore. Why? Because you have me. That's why he says, tear down this temple and I will build it up in 3 days. He's not talking about the temple building, because in point of fact, when this is being written, it has already been destroyed. The Romans have already torn it down to its foundations. John, the Gospeler, is telling us that the new temple, for those who would follow Jesus, is not a temple made of stone, but a temple which is the body of Christ. A temple not made with human hands, but a temple in which the Spirit abides. He is telling us that you are the new temple. That you, the body of Christ, you are where God dwells. We have no need of money changers. We have no need of cattle and sheep and doves and an altar of sacrifice. Indeed, we don't even need any of this. Except in the way that this can help us fulfill the law of Jesus. And that is the law of love. None of it is worthy unless it strengthens us, unless it gives us what we need to follow Jesus deeply, to be passionate about the way of Jesus, which is the way of love. To love God with all our heart and soul and strength, and to love one another as he has loved us. Even these many stones and the sacrifices that we make, all of it is useless unless it builds us up into this living temple, which is the body of Christ. Jesus calls us to follow him. Jesus calls us to build a temple, not in some faraway place where we must go and offer sacrifice, but as we hear in the words of our liturgy, to become ourselves a living sacrifice in him, that he may dwell in us and we in him. Listen to him. Hear his call as he speaks to us, follow me. Follow the path I set for you. Love, but love deeply. Love passionately. Love with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. For this is the way to God.